very good day and welcome to the Roundtable series on Nasake Online. My name is Sizwakele Ndlovu, and today we are going to be discussing what certain organizations are doing to promote voter registration. And this is part 2 of the series. We had one previously, and we're just going to discuss what other organizations are doing to promote voter registration. I have a panel of 4 joining me on Zoom, so hopefully we are going to not have network challenges this time. And I have Bongiwe Dube, Njabulo Moyo Porter, and Nhlanhla Moyo. So let's just cross over to Zoom and get our presentations. Bongiwe, are you there? Bongiwe Dube, are you there?
Hi, hello, how are you?
I'm good. Please give us a quick introduction of yourself and the organization you represent.
All right, my name is Bongiwe Dube. I'm with Community Youth Development Trust, and we are operating from Matabeleland South, and we are based in Gwanda. I'm the information officer for CYDT.
Thank you, Bongiwe. Njabulo, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Please give us a quick intro.
Yes, my name is Njabulo Moyo. I work with Transparency International Zimbabwe.
Fantastic. Nhlanhla, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. A special good morning to you. It's afternoon now. My name is Nhlanhla Moyo. I am Research and Advocacy Officer for Dot Youth Zimbabwe, based in Bulawayo.
Fantastic. I'm just hoping to have my last panelist, Porter. Unfortunately, he seems to be having network challenges, so let's just get straight to it. So, let me start with the lady. Ladies first. Wongi, please tell us what you are doing to promote voter registration within your organization. What activities your organization is carrying out. Over to you, Bongi.
All right, thank you. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so as CYDT, we've been having various activities to try and promote voter registration. So we've been having civic education platforms where we understand that there is too much information gap with regards to voter registration as to what it is, who qualifies to register, and why register to vote. And also, when are the elections being held? So therefore, as a team, we've been taking advantage of the media sphere to increase literacy on voter registration and try to bring into awareness youth rights and the importance of being included and involved in electoral processes. And so the other thing that we've been doing, we've been circulating a weekly poster that is shared in all our organizational WhatsApp groups as a way to remind youths about this ongoing exercise. And these posters have addresses and contact details for different SEC offices in Matabeleland South. And then in all our activities, we have tried to dedicate maybe 30 minutes or 20 minutes to talk about voter registration. That is sharing information with our structures, which are in both rural and urban communities of Matabeleland South on the importance of registering to vote. And we've also been having constitutional literacy forums, which also focus on dissemination of information on the Constitution. That includes human rights and the right to vote. So we deal mostly with the youths. We are a youth-focused organization, so we'll be sharing with the youths on human rights that it is also one's right to vote. And also, we have recently launched a campaign which we named #Defend Your Constituency campaign. Well, this is a social media campaign that we recently started to encourage the youths to vote so as to avoid facing the delimitation process. As we all know that Mat South is also under threat of being involved in the delimitation process due to low voter turnout. So we've recently launched this campaign to try and encourage the youths to register to vote so that we can avoid the delimitation process. And also to add on that, we've been trying to block the myths and stereotypes that are associated with voter registration, especially in Mat South. no, there are these existing stereotypes that exist among the youths about politics and elections in Zimbabwe. So most of them believe that elections want to bring change, taking into account the current challenges that the youths are facing. So they've developed this apathy to say, what change is it going to make, whether I vote or not? So we've tried to disseminate the correct information to the youths to try and encourage them and get them to register to vote. Okay, so in summary, that is what we've been doing, trying to get people to understand the reason why to vote. And CSOs is just taking advantage of the various existing spaces to increase some of the imperative points on voter registration. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I lost a bit of your presentation, I think about a minute or so. And youth apathy, and how are you addressing that? Youths are not seeing the point of being part of the voting process and things like that. How prevalent is it in your area, and what are you doing to try and get youth to come on board and be active citizens in the sphere?
All right, thank you for that question. I'm trying to allude to the fact that taking into account the recent economic situation in Zimbabwe, which has been going on for years, including lack of employment, especially for the youth. The youth feel now that there is no need for us to vote, nothing changes. At the end of the day, they still lack of employment. So we try to encourage them and try to make them understand why it is important for them to vote. And so far, yes, we're getting some that are coming forward and looking forward to register. And the other thing is that seeing that Smart South, we are situated or located near border towns. So we've got 2 border posts in Mad South, which is Beitbridge and Botswana. So most of the youth just want to migrate and try to get a better living in the neighboring countries. So it's hard to try to get through them to say, come and register and let's try and make our country better. They feel we can just go outside the country and try to make ends meet. So it's a challenge, but we're getting some to come forward and try to register.
No. Thank you, Bongi, for highlighting those points to us. I'll just move over to you, Njabulo. Tell us about what your organization is doing to promote voter registration.
Thank you so much, Sizwa, and thank you to Bongi for the wonderful work that they are doing, especially for the youth as a constituency. I would say that as an institution, our approach so far has not been more of direct, as Bongi has mentioned. We have been more about enhancing policies through things like advocating for the Whistleblower Protection Act. How does it coming into elections? The Whistleblower Protection Act, when it is enacted, it is going to protect media practitioners. It is going to protect even any other citizen who can whistleblow. So mind you, electoral processes in their nature create a lot of conflict, create a lot of corruption, create a lot of violence, and a lot of social economic losses. So by advocating for whistleblowing is a way of also contributing towards the electoral cycle, such that even when it comes to issue of vote rigging and contested results, the public is not afraid to come forward and report. Whistleblowers are not afraid to raise issues of scandals around the electoral process, around the voter passing. Young people are buzzed around the electoral violence, where women then at the end of the day tend not to participate because the political space is frightening. So that's why I was saying that the approach is rather unconventional, because we're trying to address things at a policy level. And over the years, it has been noted that the media or journalists are one of the most abused people when it comes to elections. While there is also an opportunity for the journalists to actually use the media to promote social groups, women, youths, the elderly, to participate in the voter registration process. So it is very important for us to continue with programming that addresses the need to protect the whistleblowers, because it is part of what is provided on the Constitution. So secondly, my second point linked to the idea of protecting, because anyone...
Sorry, unfortunately, I'm having serious technical issues. Where I lost you, you had just finished off a point you're whistleblowing, and you just started on the next one. If you don't mind, just recapping quickly on that and then leading up to where you are now. So, Njabulo, please take it from after your whistleblowing.
Okay, thank you. I was just mapping the relationship between the need to protect whistleblowers, who are generally victims and witnesses of corruption. So corruption also is there in the electoral processes, where there is cases of vote rigging, cases of also violence, cases of nepotism and sextortion as a form of corruption. It is very prevalent during the electoral multiple stages of the electoral process. So what I was bringing as a second point is that through platforms such as Women Empowerment Circles, the organization, what it does is that it also brings forth the leadership challenge to women so that they take leadership positions. And ultimately, we expect that they... And then lastly, it's around mainstreaming voter registration in our day-to-day activities as an anti-corruption organization. Allow me to end there. I think Ubongi really outlined quite a number of points which I wouldn't want to repeat.
Okay. And Njabulo, thank you so much. I like the aspect that you brought in of protecting whistleblowers, because I think it's something that we hadn't quite considered in this whole electoral process. It's not just voter registration, it's the voting process, it's the whole electoral process that you are trying to get to a point to be as transparent and as easy as possible for everybody involved. So I don't know if Nhlanhla is ready with his presentation. Nhlanhla?
Yes, thank you very much. I would want to build on the shoulders of the giants that have just presented before me. Thank you to Ubongi and Njabulo for laying it down in terms of the work that they are doing. At the end of the day, the work that each and every one of us does enhances the struggle for free and fair elections in the country. I will get right into what we are doing as an organization around voter mobilization. So our approach is really three-pronged, in the sense that the first part of what we have been doing is constitutional awareness education for young people, particularly in the 29 wards of Bulawayo. So our focus has been ensuring that we train different youth leaders from the different wards, as well as young people where we can via the different social media platforms, obviously because of COVID-19, and then where we can convening the youth leaders to then disseminate this information within their particular awards. So that was the aspect around ensuring that we highlight the importance of Section 20 of the Constitution around how youth must participate, represent, and be represented as well by other young people in the development of the country. Also highlighting on acts, on the legal provisions, for example, the Electoral Act and even other laws that have come through and acts that have come through, including the bills, famously and then most recent, the Zimbabwe Independent Complaint Commission bill. So that is just us then trying to stimulate the interest of young people in civic processes that are taking place, energizing them towards the elections. The second part of what we are doing is training of different youth groups at community level around civic participation. So we have had an understanding that as an organization, in as much as we would love and we are motivated to engage communities around voter registration, we find that it is more effective for us to groups of young people that are within the different constituencies and in the city to engage, because they know their context better than we would coming through from the different areas. So if it's someone that they know who is engaging them on voter registration, it becomes a bit easier because they can relate to the issues that we are struggling against as young people. So that is the second part. Now, the last part of what we are doing is generating public support for meaningful and inclusive youth participation in the electoral process. So that we are doing primarily through ensuring that supporting young people to engage even with their local leaders, to engage with parents and caregivers within their constituencies, to incite conversations around meaningful and inclusive youth participation in the election. We want to get to a point where it doesn't seem like youth are fighting the elderly within their communities, but we want to bring over the elderly in the community to understand the importance of youth meaningfully participating throughout the electoral cycle. So that includes not just the election itself, but other processes that are involved within the electoral cycle, even after the election, even after results have been announced. We would want young people to continuously engage and hold even the leaders that they elect to account until the next election, and so forth and so on. Thank you very much. Please allow me to leave it there.
So Nhlanhla, I like the aspect that you mentioned of youth being talked to by youth, not with abantu abadala trying to impose certain things on the youth, but the youth having a discussion over, they're the ones who know how they want to receive a message. They are the ones who know the issues that they're having, and they're the ones with the solutions most of the time to the issues that they're having. So you're saying youth want to have their own voice to their own people.
Exactly. If an elderly person, we see it for some of us who are still young. We see it when we even have conversation with our parents. We don't relate at that particular level as much as we relate with our peers. So some conversations are best had with our peers that would understand why I am interested in ICT, for example, as a young person. My parents are more interested in around securing their pension and ensuring that they are secure in terms of their land, their pension, and so on. But I am not, as a young person, I am not really yet there. But my focus is, how then do I survive in this particular moment in time and the situation that we are in? So the more young people speak to other young people, the understanding is better, and we don't feel like someone is doing something for us, but we feel like we are in the struggle together.
Okay. Thank you, Nhlanhla. As an old timer, though, last question. Mina nje umuntu omdala, being on the other side, let me say ngikhangelele pension and things like that. What should we be doing as adults to help our youth become more active citizens? Ngenzeni mina njengomzali, as an elder in the community, as a parent, as somebody that young people will think maybe that's somebody to look up to?
Thank you very much. A very interesting question that has been recurring in a lot of our work, because the perception has always been that, so you want to chase us out, where then should we go? I think the most important thing is that we have to accept first that the old timers, as you say, have a bit more experience around certain issues that we may not necessarily have. Yes, we have the innovation, we are driven to change things, and we are driven to advance into the next stage of the revolution, as it were. But there are certain things that we still need to learn, in as much as we can teach. Same applies for the old timers. They can teach in as much as they can learn. It comes down to synergy. So what the elderly can do is to synergize. Don't close the spaces for young people to participate. If you are a decision maker, or if you're a gatekeeper in a decision-making space, let the young people get into that space, take the views, allow them, make the decisions together. At the end of the day, we are progressing society. It's not just for individual benefit. After all, if everyone participates, even the individuals get to benefit as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nhlanhla, for that contribution. And you bring into mind a very important factor, though, but our culture has made it that it's men first. Patriarch is men, and women and children and the youth are somewhere further down. So it's not just a political thing, it's a cultural thing as well. So Bongi, how are you facing this cultural dynamic, especially in your rural areas, when the women and youth say, we would like to have a voice, but the system says you are not supposed to have a voice? Balance and journey in people trying to come out and take part in a society that says sit down and not be part of the system?
Hello. Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, so especially CYDT, our area of operation, Sise Makaya, the rural communities of Gwanda, the rural communities of Bolilima, Mangwe, and also the urban communities. So it's a highly patriarchal society whereby if maybe the youths, they want to voice up, the young women, they want to voice up, they are faced with a challenge in a patriarchal society. They are regarded as children. Your voice doesn't really matter. You're supposed to be at home, taking care of the kids, taking care of the family. So it's quite a challenge, but what we have done, we have done trainings on policy formulation and civic education, whereby we invite the elders, we invite the chiefs, we invite also the youths, we bring them both together, we train both the youths and the elders on those platforms, whereby we allude to the fact that we want to work together. It's not a competition. We want to come together and work together as one and bring solutions together, so that at the end of the day, it's not about this is for elders, this is for the youths, but we want to work together to come to solutions for the betterment of our societies. So that's what we've been doing, training both the elders and the youths. Thank you.
Are the elderly people trainable? And you can't teach an old dog new tricks. How are the old people like me responding to this education and the new way of thinking that you're bringing forward?
Okay, sorry, please come again.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. So Tinavadala, how are we responding to this education that is challenging our culture and our standing in society as the leaders or people who know it all? But Tinavadala about all this training.
Okay, true. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, but what we've done, we look for facilitators who are familiar with the area, familiar with the cultures, and who are basically someone who is flexible with both the elders and the youths, someone who's not going to take a side to say, elders, and let the youths lead, someone who's going to balance the conversation. So that's what we've done so far. We try to make them understand. It's not easy, but we've managed to reach some certain ground.
Thank you, Bongi. Njabulo, back to you, over to you. You mentioned, Duty, you're trying to cover the whole electoral process. What are some of the challenges you've been facing in trying to implement some of the initiatives that you're doing?
Thank you. Right now, we're in an electoral phase where we are looking at post-election, and now we are moving past the issues of voter registration. And clearly, the statistics that are coming out from Bulawayo, I think it was only 8 people in the whole region, 8 people. So that on its own tells you the bigger story, that there is issues of voter fatigue. Number 2, while there is biometric voter registration, which was something that was adopted in the last election in Zimbabwe, where the registration process is computerized, is digital registration. And there were conspiracy theories around BVR, where some people believe that once you have your iris scanned, once you have your finger print taken, you have already voted. So there are issues that still need to be demystified. Also, more particularly for the elderly, because in their lifetime, some of them, they never went through a machine to register to vote. It was always a pen and a paper. So we still face the crisis of demystifying some of these things and the need for more information dissemination packages that are easy to comprehend for the general public. That's one, mysticism around the electoral process, especially VR. Two, the issue of voter fatigue. People are just tired. They are tired of seemingly not seeing change. I mean, I wouldn't want to then unpack what kind of change that people are talking about. But there is a general conversation around the lack of elections, the lack of capacity of the elections to bring change. So people are always hanging on to the fact that what does it change? So voter fatigue is a very important element around the electoral process. Three, there is the issue of lack of representation. Zimbabwe is a representative democracy as a country, and unfortunately, my statement becomes ambiguous when I say there's a lack of representation, where people like Nhlanhla, the youth, will be clamoring to say young people are not represented, but the country is a representative democracy. So what they are saying there is that in order for you to represent your constituencies, there are several challenges. So at the end of the day, people are not able to vote for the candidates that they want, because the candidates that they want, young people like Nhlanhla, they don't have the resources for electoral campaigns. They don't have maybe the political stamina for them to really fight through. Three, they might also fear victimization, because we've seen people being victimized even at the very basic level of being an electoral candidate. When we are doing your primary elections, at your own political party, there's already violence before you even go nationally and so forth. So you also note that there is also the victimization of women. I remember at some point one lady was called Hure, this whole Hure thing that was happening in the political landscape around the elections. So at the end of the day, we start name calling women in this whole process. But at the same time, Sizwa and I will be saying women should participate. But the environment is calling patronal and patience and privilege is calling them Hures, because they are seemingly not misfits within this environment. I think my last point will be around the issue of challenges around electoral reforms. These also speak to the access to polling stations. Some polling stations are far. You find that you are from Zliazi and maybe your name is appearing at a school that is very far. It's a reality in Zimbabwe, especially in the rural constituency. The geography is a sparse geography. Therefore, umuntu ohlala kweSigoboko to walk 30, 40 kilometers just to go and maybe register or to cast their ballot is discouraging for many citizens. So I call and hope that at some point we get to accepting, embracing technology, the same way we've embraced VR. Also, there is the contestation around the diaspora vote. There is over 3 to 4 million Zimbabweans that live outside Zimbabwe. And those are a critical constituency. When I say UK, South Africa, they also don't participate because we have not embraced the concept of diaspora vote. There are also people that are in prison. In other countries, prisoners actually get to vote. Yes, we have the police voting, but it is not that pronounced that even those people in prison, in other countries, they still have got the right to choose their leadership. So I can go on and on, but it is a conglomerate of issues that are discouraging the general public. Perceptions around elections, violence around elections, party factions, inter-party fights, issues like that, they really contribute to a negative outlook. Maybe the last one, You see, we ended up going to oh, Sizwa is laughing because I'm saying the last one for the last time. It is about maybe they need to separate the separation of power or the trias politica, as it were, where there is a feeling that there is no separation. The executive can override the judiciary. Our courts are not independent. So that one is very critical. It discourages abantu. It's like elections are won at a court when they are supposed to be won through the ballot. Thank you.
Oh, was that your last answer? Last response?
Yes.
It's interesting with the separation of powers, and right now we are wading through this constitutional amendment 1 and 2 that, well, 2 is already an act now, that has consolidated power for the president being able to choose prosecutor general, judges, ministers. So it does seem like a very grim environment to be in, and Ambasoli wanted sometimes to say, why bother? But that said, Nhlanhla, I'd like to ask you, because on the one hand, we're saying we're packaging all these messages, but people sometimes have too many messages packed up into one thing. This is a brochure, and we try to cram in as many things as possible, and there'll be some political elements, some social elements. It becomes information overload. How do we try and maximize the information we give to people without giving them so much information that umuntu city, you know what, I won't even bother trying to read any of this, it's just too much. How can we simplify the message so much? Maybe if we're pushing one message as pushing in city voter registration kuphela, wonke umuntu ahlabele ka-one, is that feasible, is that doable, or yeah, maybe I just don't get it?
Thank you very much, Swaki. It's possible. And it works, but when we start to talk about reality, that is where there is a bit of a mismatch. So I say this from a programmer side, and then I will speak maybe about it from a citizen's point of view. From a programmer side, I think Njabulo touched a bit on resources. A lot of this work that is done requires resources to be able to take place. And so you would then find out that the SMBs that in a city for some of these initiatives will have their specific target for what they want out of the work that is being done. And so when community organizations then apply for that particular funding, it is guided still by the call for proposals, for example, that comes through. And so you will realize that in as much as all organizations would want to focus on one thing at that particular time, but the other niggas are focusing on so many different things. So there is also need to have a conversation with funders of some of these initiatives to say, you know what, let's sit down, let's focus, because where the money is, that is where a lot of the agendas will follow. That is at a program, from a programmer's perspective. Now, from a community perspective, and as well from a community worker's perspective, I feel that we are cramping a lot of the messages, and it becomes worse now, especially with COVID-19, that we are trying to use a whole lot of social media, which is very good, but it's still missing out on a lot of the population, people that do not have access to the social media, for example, that we have. Maybe someone might have access to social media just for basic chatting, but not to access the different video content that is available there. And so there is need to strategize and have some of that coming through. But to directly answer your question, I would suggest that theater for development is important for this type of reach. And we use a bit of that in our work, that sometimes you don't then have to cramp a lot of messages in one, but you want people to relate to that message. And the best way to do that is to mirror their experiences in their communities through theater for development, and then start inciting conversations from there, so that communities are leading the conversation and not us, the programmers, leading them and directing them in a certain way. So it can be done. It's challenging, but it's not impossible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. You've just highlighted a really important point, Jyoti. Sometimes donors and funding in particular programs, you'll find it being directed a certain way, whereas there's a need somewhere else, but it was applied for and it has to be used in that particular instance. And maybe sometimes we do not have an appreciation. Ukuthi umnikazi wempuphu yabethe hayi lipheke isithwala lesi lifite izinja zami. Meanwhile, lina lilambile but uthe kumele kufite izinja or something like that. So thank you for bringing that out. At this point in time, if there's anybody who would like to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand, and raise it on Zoom, not raise it here, and I will attend to you. I'll just go through the comments quickly. Ulubalete says, I suggest that in empowerment circles, women should be advised and compelled to spread the message to their children and husbands at home, so that even the youths will feel included in the process and act accordingly. Let's make them opinion leaders to spread the word, to have more people voting. Interesting. Let me see. I agree with Luba. The conversations should be made the new norm. That's from Melissa. And so if anybody else has any comments or questions, we'd appreciate if you raise your hands. Otherwise, I will ask our panel to just give us their last words, and then we wrap this up. So I don't see any hands. So Bongiwe, do you have any last words for our viewers and our guests?
Hello, thank you so much. Okay, my last words to our viewers and our guests is that let's try to spread the word. Let's try to tell as many people as possible about the importance of registering. Let's try to share the information that we know, and have especially more youths registering to vote, seeing that they constitute 60% of the population. So let's try to encourage everyone to register to vote, and also not just everyone that we meet outside. Let's also tell our inner circle. Let's tell our family, our friends, encouraging them to register to vote. So that's just about it. Thank you.
Bongi, ubule hashtag that you mentioned. What was that hashtag that you mentioned? I'd just like to take note of it. Constituency.
Hashtag defend your constituency campaign.
Okay, hashtag defend your constituency. Okay.
Campaign, yes.
And just so that you are aware, for a constituency to be considered a constituency, it needs approximately 27,000 registered voters to come through. So if you do not have that number, your constituency will then be bundled up with the next one. So 26,000 people, 26,000 registered voters is what is required to defend your constituency. So if you didn't know, at least you know something new now, and do share the word. That's why we're actually calling for people to go out and register to vote. Bongi, thank you so much for your words. Njabulo, what are your last words?
Well, for me to relate to what you just mentioned, the boundary delimitation process, constituency delimitation is very important in Zimbabwe because it determined whether right now in Bulawayo, the 12 constituencies will be increased or decreased. So we need to go and register to vote and participate, because this affects us as a city when there are now resources like the Constituency Development Fund. It is a constituency-based funding. So the lesser the constituencies, the lesser the funding, the lesser any other resources. So for me, my last word is that let us go and register to vote.
Thank you very much. Parting short, one directed to young people and the communities, and one directed to the different programming entities that are working in the communities. I will start with the communities. I would say hashtag register, vote, and defend. And defend is in capital letters because we find that a lot of the disillusionment that has come through is because there has been a failure to defend the vote. And so a lot of the confusion and the conversations that are stemming from the communities are around what happens after we vote. So we need to invest more in that and ensuring that communities understand that it's a cycle. It's not a one-day event where someone just goes in and votes and that's it. And so let's encourage young people in particular to register to vote. And let's get to explain what delimitation is with a community approach and not our technical approach. Even the word delimitation itself, when you say it in some of these communities, it will not relate, it will not make sense. And finally, for the programmers, different organizations, CSOs and whatnot, if I come today with a message and you come tomorrow with a different message, we are, one, confusing the community, and we are causing some level of fatigue when it comes to our work. We need to work together and define an agenda for our particular communities, such that if we are then sending through a message, it's one message, and we even concert our resources and focus on that. Where there is concentration, there is bound to be bigger and better impact.
Thank you so much, Nhlanhla, and a very big thank you to the panel, Bongiwe, Njabulo, and Nhlanhla. That's all we have on the roundtable series today, and I think we've got two important hashtags to take away. One is defend your constituency, and the other one is register, vote, and defend. This is just the beginning of a conversation that we hope to have, and we would like people to go out and register to vote. We're complaining about how distances of where you have to register. For example, go Bulawayo, we're saying Famona. There are people in Famona or close to Famona that are able to go register to vote. So please take this opportunity now, whoever is close by, to go out and start the process. And then hopefully once other centers are opened up, we then go out in our numbers. That said, I'll have to call this to an end. My name is Sizwakele Ndlovu, and thank you for watching Asake Online. Please remember to mask up, sanitize your hands regularly or wash them with soap and water, and please maintain social distance. The third wave of COVID-19 is real, and it is here in Zimbabwe, so please stay safe. Thanks for watching Asake Online. Bye for now.